Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Manager tries to make life difficult for me, doesn't know as per my contract it benefits me. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working on a part-time basis in a small firm owned by friends. Pay was not very good, but the atmosphere was, and I was allowed to set my own timings. So life was good overall. Then a friend whom I knew only through social media approached me for a job in her company. Even though they were offering good money, I turned down the offer as I knew I could not get the benefits I was getting in my current job. Plus the commute to the new office was very long. I would have to travel 2 hours one way and change 3 trains just to reach office. A month later, the HR of the new firm approached me again. They offered me almost 4 times the money I was making, and I could set my own work hours. There was also extra pay for working overtime and on weekends. This was important. I joined the new company. My friend did not know the terms of the new agreement I had with our. She used to act like I owed her big time for the opportunity I got. So one day I corrected her. I told her that I had turned down the offer she had been part of, and 1 month later I had had my own negotiations and I got much more favorable terms. So I was here because her company really needed me and not because of her. I didn't share the details of my agreement with her, but we both realized that she was making significantly lesser than me. This totally changed her attitude towards me. Now she wanted me out, and I was determined to stick through for at least a year. So she decided that she would make it very difficult for me to work so that I quit on my own. There are a lot of stories I have about how she tried every trick in the book to make me quit. I'm sharing some of them here. She was my manager and was in charge of allocating work. Malicious Compliance 1. She started piling on work on me than any other member of the team. I was happy to comply. She did not know that as part of my contract I would be paid 1.5 times the hourly rate for every hour I worked OT and 2 times the hourly rate if any work was allocated to me over weekends or holidays. Every time she tried to ruin my weekend by calling me to office unnecessarily, I happily complied. This continued till the time I left the organization and told her how much extra money she had helped me make. Malicious Compliance 2. After the long commute to work, I used to be hungry, so I developed the habit of stopping at the food court to pick up a glass of fresh fruit juice and carry it with me to work. My manager thought that this way she could harass me without actually seeming to do so. So she sent a notice that bringing liquids to office was a hazard. Ironically, she used to have coffee delivered to get desk 3 times a day. Well, I pointed out that the rule applied to her as well, and if I couldn't have my juice, she couldn't have her coffee. She had to literally spend an extra unpaid hour at work every time she wanted her special coffee. Meanwhile, I was happy to leisurely sit in the food court, have my glass of fresh fruit juice with some snacks, and then begin my workday half-hour later than usual. Next one is titled, So I'm not getting the promotion you promised? Then I'm not doing the extra work. This isn't my story, but my wife's. She doesn't have read it and said I could share her story with you lovely people. Allow me to set the scene. My wife, Harper's, official title is Mental Health Professional, or MHP, and she has been in this position for 3 years at a live-in care facility for adults with mental illnesses. Before that, she worked for several years on the mental health ward at the hospital, so she had more experience walking into her current position than anyone else they had hired. Within her first year, she got 2 lifers to progress in their treatment plans so thoroughly that they both got the okay to move out into the sister program that has more freedom and independence. She was working with a 3rd lifer, who was about ready to apply for the sister program when lockdown hit and the transfers between housing, or even non-AMA releases, were suspended. All this is to say that she has made some very serious and positive changes for this facility from the moment she started working there. They made her the lead MHP, and her direct supervisor's boss started giving her more responsibilities, like the morning team report for the whole facility, handling client money, making decisions on big changes to help the overall workload, etc. Her yearly review happened in December, which was promised to come with a large raise to reflect all the added responsibilities she has been gradually given. Of course, it didn't. She stayed on HR about her raise for a month or so after the review itself until the big boss finally brought her into his office to discuss with her a promotion. It would be a bit tricky because she has her bachelor's in psych and social work, but not her master's, which we're working on getting her back in school soon to complete, and which she needs to officially fulfill the job title they had in mind. Still, she was clearly leaps and bounds beyond her coworkers, often staying over to help clients or to help finish paperwork, filling in wherever she's needed. So, promoting her would be cheaper than hiring on someone new, and of course this would come with an even better pay raise. So, for the last few months my wife has been doing even more for her supervisor's boss and the big boss. Anything they ask of her, dangling that official promotion over her head, constantly saying it would be a gradual transition, and she needs to learn this or that, do this or that, to train for it. Out of her own pocket, she bought new binders and other supplies that made the various parts of her job and theirs easier. She planned, reorganized, filled in, whatever. The supervisor's boss even told her verbatim, "I don't know what I would do without your help," several times. All this with the promise of an official promotion and a raise. Then it happened. Last week, Harper was tasked with sorting through potential new hires, as they had been hurting for more MHPs for some time, and the bosses had taken some of Harper's clients off her workload to make room for the new responsibilities. She noticed that of the stack she was given, all applicants had a master's or qualifying credential in social work. Worrisome. 2 days ago, it was business as usual for most of the day until about an hour before Harper was supposed to clock out. She called me in angry tears, ranting about the conversation she had just had with the supervisor's boss. He told her she would unfortunately be taking on more clients, and the promotion would be put on hold for the time being. She said he didn't come right out and say he had decided to hire one of the people with a master's instead for the position, but what he did say was, "You'll have to relinquish any added responsibilities and return to being just an MHP." Okay. Bet. After trying to calm her down, I gave my normally frustratingly accommodating wife a nudge in the malicious direction. One of the first added responsibilities she was given was the morning report. It was her job to have all the staff gather during the client's breakfast to relay what happened during third shift, the plans for the day, coordinating client appointments, etc. She would have to be in the facility before third shift clocked out to get their notes, and then plan a traveling and gas budget for all the appointments, review any safety concerns or incidents, and this all added about an hour to her morning. So, how happy was she the next morning when she got to snooze her alarm and sleep in a bit longer. When she got to the facility at her usual clock-in time as an MHP, she said the place was already in chaos. A fight had broken out and someone had some money stolen out of their room. All normal events for this place, but no one was exactly sure on the who or why of it because third shift had had no one to pass along the notes, so they just filed them and left. Of course Harper knew where they had been filed, because she organized the filing system no one had thought to check. As soon as supervisor's boss saw her clock in, he asked why she wasn't there for report. See, he is always a seemingly sweet and soft-spoken man, which made the sudden change of mind all the more surprising. Harper said she just stared him down, trying not to grin, and said, "I'm just an MHP, I can't handle the morning report." She then spent the rest of the day giving him the cold shoulder, relaying only necessary information to him while focusing on her clients and paperwork. I want to be clear, it isn't that they chose a more educated person for the higher position. That makes plenty of sense. It's that they promised her that position, spent the last few months transitioning her responsibilities to that position, promised her the pay raise to go with it, and then ripped it out from under her. That's some underhanded bullshit. Oh, and since she isn't getting the promotion, she went to HR to see about her overdue yearly raise. She was told no one is getting a raise at the moment because of COVID. Last one is titled, "You want me to tuck my shirt in?" Sure boss. Years ago I worked at a certain big box pet store with employees in blue shirts and poorly maintained fish tanks. Back then employees were required to tuck their uniform shirts into their khakis, with an exemption for pregnant female employees, which I was at the time of this occurrence. I worked the registers with my untucked shirt with no issues for months while I was preggo. When I was about 8 months pregnant and just a few weeks shy of going on maternity leave, we got a new manager that was painfully clueless and stupid. Isn't that always the way? So one day, this manager calls myself and the other main cashier, who was also just as preggo as I was, into the office, with another manager as a witness, to tell us that we are fine cashiers, but our uniforms are lacking. The other cashier and myself are just, because we both had our khakis, uniform shirts and black sneakers. Everything was neat and clean, so we both had no clue what he was talking about. I ask him what he is referring to. He replies that our shirts have to be tucked in. The other cashier and I have both been with the company for a while and we are both super familiar with the uniform policy, so she and I both object and let him know that pregnant employees are exempt from the tucking policy. He waves his hand at us and says that we are incorrect and that all employees must tuck their shirts. The other manager that is there acting as a witness chimes in that we are correct, but clueless manager cuts witness manager off and says he knows what the policy is and that previous management was just being lax. They weren't, pregnant employees were actually exempt. The other cashier and I shrug and leave the office to go tuck our shirts in. Clueless manager left for the day right after talking to us. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. We tucked our shirts in for sure, but if you aren't familiar with pregnant fashion, you essentially have two options for pants. Option 1 is using a belly band on your existing pants or using pants with a belly band attached already. A belly band is essentially a very wide elastic strap that goes around the baby bump to hold your pants up, which essentially puts the top edge of your pants at your ribs. Option 2 is to do the hairband trick, which is to take an elastic hair tie and loop it through the buttonhole of your pants and around the button of the pants. This gives you a few extra inches of waist room in your pants to accommodate the baby bump, and also exposing your underwear, lower abdomen since you cannot zip your fly. Both options look absolutely ridiculous and are meant to be concealed under a shirt, and they only get more ridiculous the more pregnant you are, which we were both heavily pregnant by this time. For those unfamiliar, by 8 months pregnant you are basically Violet from Willy Wonka with an internal Oompa Loompa kicking you in the bladder every 20 minutes. So we both emerge, waddle gloriously, from the back room where we tucked in our shirts looking absurd. I had my shirt tucked into my belly band just below my boobs, and the other cashier had hers tucked into her hairband closed pants, below her belly and with her leopard print underwear exposed. Clueless manager was already gone for the day, so he was not present to see our magnificent uniform compliance. He wasn't in for another 2 days, so he didn't see our dutiful compliance, but all of our customers and coworkers sure did. Our regulars asked why we had our shirts tucked like that, and of course we obliged them and explained that clueless manager insisted we tuck our shirts in to comply with the uniform policy. For 2 full days, and part of that first shift after clueless manager left for the day, customer complaints to corporate about our treatment rolled in and coworkers called the employee hotline to report clueless manager. District manager is upset about the whole thing, which we found out on day 3. On day 3, return of clueless manager, he enters the store, sees the other cashier and myself with our beautifully ridiculous uniforms and asks why we are dressed like that. You told us to tuck our shirts in. He gets red in the face and beelines to the office. He calls us into the office immediately and starts going off on us for not taking the uniform policy seriously. Mid-tirade the district manager arrives, furious. She turned to us prego egos and nicely told us to untuck our shirts and head back out to the floor before turning to clueless manager and going ballistic on him for enforcing something that we pregos were exempt from. Turns out clueless manager ruined district manager's days off because of all the complaints that came in about the 2 pregnant employees forced by a male manager to show their underwear, pregnancy attire in public due to an absurd uniform policy. The complaints weren't just about the manager, they were about the company uniform policy as well. The customers didn't know the real policy, and the employee hotline complaints as well. All of these had to be handled by the district manager as soon as possible because the sheer number of complaints in such a short time meant that the regional manager was breathing down the district manager's neck to resolve the issue. District manager forced an apology to us out of clueless manager and treated us to lunch. We also got our stools to sit on at the register's back. Clueless manager took our stools away because, if you can lean, you can clean. Clueless manager was sent to back HR training and fired shortly after for another similar violation. I was on maternity leave so I didn't get to wish him farewell. Edit for the morbidly curious about that similar violation I mentioned. Clueless manager refused to special order a pin-backed name tag for an employee with a pacemaker. Our name tags were magnetic, because young people don't have pacemakers. Clueless manager also refused to let this employee at least move the magnetic tag to the opposite side of his chest to at least not have the magnet sitting directly over his pacemaker because this was not in compliance with the uniform policy. This guy was actually insinuating that this employee was just looking to make trouble and get special treatment over a name tag. Thanks for listening.